Every author has things on their bucket list that there's sell X amount of copies but the one that takes the cake. When we were publishing the book, we wanted our own scene break. So Stella drew the scene break that is in many of the chapters in the book. And one of our earliest readers, someone who has been just an absolute support through the whole thing, loved the book, has ranted and raved about it a lot, sent us a picture where they got the scene break art tattooed. And that is by far the biggest honor I could possibly imagine. I still don't have words to describe the feeling that even a couple months after they did it, even thinking about it, I'm still just like, I cannot believe that happened. And it's been the highlight of everything for me to see that we've connected with people on such a level that we've had somebody actually put it on their body. And it's amazing.
Welcome to Raising Baby Authors. I'm Cassia, your host and a brand new writer. If you feel overwhelmed and lost about this whole writing thing, you're certainly not alone. Join me while I pester my author guests for writing advice and find out how they do it. Because if they could, then why not you? It truly takes a village to raise an author, so let me share my village with you. Hello, dear listener, and welcome back to the second season of Raising Baby Authors podcast. I am very excited to have you here. Thank you for giving me your time and attention. And today I have a very interesting guest, or I rather say guests, for you. This is an author duo, which I'm super excited about. I could never have imagined writing together with someone, so I'm definitely going to have a ton of questions. This is a dark fantasy romance authors, Stella and Vincent Lunaire. Welcome, guys.
Hello. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having us here. We're excited.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I was always fascinated by how people can actually write together. I'm a really, really rigid person when it comes to my writing. So I'm just very curious on how you make things work together between you. I think we're going to start where we always start and talk about your background. So basically, who you are and how you decided to start writing.
Okay, Vincent, if you want to go first.
Okay. So I'm Vincent Lunaire. I started writing way back when I was a kid. I jumped into it at a fairly young age. I got in a lot of trouble. Actually, Stella and I both got in a lot of trouble in high school because we wrote and submitted writing assignments to our teachers that contained themes that were inappropriate for high school, which simultaneously led to being mandatory counseling sessions with the school counselor and also a lot of recognition from the teachers saying that we needed to keep that up. We knew each other in high school. We weren't together then, but we were friends. So I just never really got out of loving writing. I wrote short stories. I wrote full-length things that I never did anything with, just reams of spiral notebooks full of story ideas and little snippets of things. But then when Stella and I got together, she was like, "Hey, why are you not actually doing this?" So we started collaborating. We started really laying down the groundwork for what would later become Sonata and the other books in the series.
Wow. Okay. What about you, Stella? I mean, I know more or less half of the story, but maybe you can add something from you.
Yeah. So I did a lot of poetry actually in high school. And then as I got older, I actually focused more on my degree and left writing to the side. And then when Vincent and I started dating, like he said, he was big on writing and I thought that was great. And then I would just pop up with ideas. I'd be like, hey, but what about this idea? And so my contributions really early on were more just the story part of it rather than the actual sitting down and putting words to paper. And then we just evolved from there. We played a lot of D&D campaigns. When we had a lot of time, we played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. And that really just kind of helped us do some world exploration. And then it grew from there.
Okay. That's interesting. I mean, I'm just thinking in parallel because my husband loves to offer me ideas and I sometimes like them and yeah, okay, that might be added. But if he starts to offer to write with me, I'll be like, no, nah, you cannot.
Yeah.
I do not like when anybody interferes with my vision. So, I mean, okay, so in the beginning, Stella, you say that you started contributing with ideas. When did you actually start writing together?
When we sat down and started working like actual words to paper writing, it was more after the pandemic started. So post 2020. I mean, we had some light stuff before then, but never really like, let's take this seriously. So time is weird for me. I don't remember which year it was. Do you remember, Vincent?
Well, when we wrote the first draft of what we were originally hoping would be the first book we released, and then we pivoted from that. That was in 2021 to 2022 when we actually like
Hey.
finished. I think 2022 was when we had the moment of we wrote the words "to be continued" on the first book that we completed together, and it was like, oh wow, we had this huge surreal like this is amazing feeling. And now, of course, we've realized that just making it through the first draft of something together is not anywhere close to the full amount of work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was around then. I think probably 2014, 2013 or something, would have been the first time that you and I sat down. We started coming up with ideas, and I actually tried to put an entire draft down of something. But you were not actually
Yeah.
writing at that point. You were kind of a heavily involved dev
Yeah.
edit situation back then.
Yeah, so I think back then, for me, I had not ever considered actually doing the writing. I was just like the idea person. And then now, the way we handle it is for this current series, I write our FMC chapters and he writes the MMC chapters, and then we respond to each other in our writing. So that's kind of how we approach it.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely will have questions about that. I think your PA told me that, and I was instantly like, yes, yes, I want to talk to them because that is really, really interesting. But I think I first want to ask about your first book. You did mention that you decided not to publish it. Can you just tell me what were you writing and why did you decide to put it away?
So I'll answer this one. Yeah, so we haven't published it yet. We're going to return to it. And it
Mhm.
is about the demon Asmodeus. And so it was just very much the first book we had ever written. It just screams, this isn't where we want it to be. And by the time we finished it, it was kind of burned out on the story because it was a lot of practice, a lot of learning kind of what our voice was. And we were like, let's set this to the side. Let's come back to it. And then I had another idea for a different book, and Vincent was in the store and he came out and I was like, hey, what about this? And he was like, okay. And then we just ran with that. And then an entire series was born. And then once we get done, we will return back to our first book about Asmodeus. We think about that book a lot. It was not where it needed to be. And we're not sure how much work it's going to take to get it to where it needs to be.
I see. But I think if I say that without this first book you wouldn't be able to write the second one in a better way, would I be right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, there's probably, I would say, 4 or 5 scenes from that first book that I still remember in pretty vivid detail, and then I'm like, "What did we fill the rest of that book with?" But just just because it was like, okay, we've got to, we had this idea of we want this character arc, we want all of this stuff to happen, and it was just about like moving the characters from point to point instead of making every scene matter. And
Right.
and that's the main shift that we had when we moved away from that book because we realized this is going to be a major rewrite. This is going to be almost taking it back to square one and being like, okay, we've got to make these other things important the way we did, with our other book, with the published book. And so it was nowhere near the same level of care and attention and detail. So we just kind of haven't looked at it in a while and still want to, but it needs a lot of work.
Yeah, I understand. I actually am in the same exact situation. I don't write the same genre. I mean, it's romance after all, but not a fantasy one. And I have a first draft that I just started writing like in 2024, I think. I'm not sure. And yeah, I also finished it, and I also know that I'm not going to publish it first. That's for sure. And it needs a lot of work, but I'm in love with that story. This is my story basically, and I'm still going to publish it, but I think I'm going to have to like rewrite all of it. It's also a bunch of scenes that I really love, but they don't really go into a story together. Like it
Right.
needs to be more. Yeah, I think a lot of authors kind of start like this.
I hope so. Otherwise,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I like to think that we all have our way of finding ourselves through our first book. So it's less lonely thinking that like only a couple of us do it.
Yeah. I mean, I listened to a ton of podcasts and authors talking about their stuff, and almost nobody publishes their first ever book.
Right.
Even if they say they did, even if they say they did, it turns out that they did have something before that they even forgot about that was never published. Okay, so the genre like of both of the books, like your whole chosen genre would be the dark fantasy romance, right? Or you are like open to other things?
So I think technically some people classify us as dark fantasy with a romance subplot. So we kind of walk the line there, but mostly I think that that's pretty much what we will stick to is fantasy with romance. That's just where we usually hang out. And I don't think we're looking to branch out from that. Not that there's anything wrong with those genres. We like to read other genres. I just think that we enjoy writing in this one more.
Yeah, okay. I mean, Vincent did mention that he had some darker themes in his essays in high school, so I guess that continues.
We do want to drive a story home. We want to have a lot of there is allegory, there is representation of the real world and things that tie in, but that's so much better to explore through a setting that is not, this happening in, the real world. You can have a lot more liberty to bring those kind of things out and to have that commentary and to have things that resonate with the readers. And one of the things with us as we see life in general, it's very hard to feel connected to characters when everything magically kind of works out, where everyone is always happy and where, you have I love The Lord of the Rings as much as anyone else, but you have the ending where every one of the main characters survives and everything is great and everything's good. And so we as writers are going to probably always drift a little darker than your typical just fantasy. We're going to drift into a realm where it's like, hey, we want you to feel things. We don't treat darker subject matter lightly. We try to never use anything that's just for shock value, just like a beloved character being, taken out in a scene. We try to have gravity even when it's side characters who face hardship or who face things like that, because we care about you feeling and having a real emotional reaction. So yes, we will always tend to the darker side, the heavier side, but we try to put that hope in. We try to try to give you that walk that line between just, like a grim dark beat you over the head with just this is how horrible things are, and still weave hope throughout it.
I am a romance reader. A lot of my listeners are romance authors or readers as well. So if anybody wants to read your books, you do say that it's a dark fantasy with romantic subplots or romantic elements. Does that mean that you do not guarantee like a happily ever after for the romantic subplots in your books?
So this first book series is considered a fantasy romance. There will be a happily ever after, or at least a happy, end up together. But there's trauma. So depends on how you define happy,
Yes.
I guess.
Yeah, it's mostly for
Right.
classification of like, because I know very well how to classify romance, but I don't know all the little differences in fantasy, because it's romantasy or fantasy romance, and what's the difference between those. And all I need to know is that, am I going to be angry at the end of somebody's book?
At the end of it, no, at like 75% into it, yeah, probably. But no,
That's fine.
we are definitely going to be following the romance requirements for happy ever after.
Okay. Yeah, it's especially for, I think, beginner authors. I'm not saying you're beginners,
Oh, we
but like
are.
people who publish first books.
Yeah.
It's very important to like not confuse the genre whether you do have or don't have a happily ever after. Because yeah, if you call something a romantasy now and then someone dies at the end, that's not gonna fly very
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, we know. We have seen the online arguments about the happily ever after. And yeah, no, I agree. I find it interesting, but Vincent and I both talk about how like there's a spoiler built in to knowing that you're reading a romance novel and that it's going to have this happily ever after it. Um
Yeah.
That has been something we've discussed a lot because we don't like spoilers ourselves. And
Mhm.
so just knowing that that's how it ends has been kind of like we had thought about classifying it differently, but to say that it's different, once you get into it, once you get especially to book 2, if you are not expecting a fantasy romance, you would be so upset because it takes off. Like it's a slow burn. But in book 2 it
Mhm.
really like starts to take off and then it just only grows from there. So we didn't want people to get into the series and think, oh, this is a fantasy, and then actually it's a fantasy romance. So that's why we started calling it fantasy romance from the beginning because, here we are. I know that probably doesn't make
It
sense.
makes
Okay,
sense.
okay, it does. Okay, great.
It does make sense this way. I mean, I understand your feeling about spoilers. It's definitely could be there, but like if you try to be vague about it as well, you might lose a portion of readers who really like romantic
Right.
stories and romantic fantasy, who would know for sure that they are safe to read this book. I used to be able to read anything, but now I need to be in a special mood to read something that does not have a good ending.
Right.
Okay, so you've got one book out so far, as far as I researched?
Yes. Just the first one in that series is out.
Okay, I have the page open now. That cover is amazing. Oh my God. How many books are you planning in that series, and what is it about, basically? So if anybody wants to read, what do they expect?
Vincent, I'll let you take this one.
Okay. So we are going to have the main series will consist of 4 books. There are some spin-offs in the book series, some shorter books. The main books are bigger. Book 1 is somewhere around 140 to 150,000 words. Right now, book 2 is sitting at a little over 200,000 words, and we're currently working on
We're cutting
how we can prune that back a bit.
a lot. Bring it back a lot.
We do have yeah. So I am an overwriter. I am the type of person who will spend 3 pages describing the city layout. I'm like, here's how the streets are aligned and all. And she's like, stop it. You've got to not do this. But there's also going to be some other stuff. We have a main character in the series. So you asked what it's about. So the best way I can deliver that, when I came out of that store, what she said to me was, what would it be like if vampires were in control of the world and they kept humans like we keep cows? And I said,
Okay.
all right, let's talk. And the story just kept building off of that. So it is a story of rebellion. It is a story of rising up against a oppressive overlord class kind of thing, as the greater story arc goes. But it's mostly focused on the characters. It is this person who is pulled from the blood farm that she has grown up on. She's selected as a pet for the prince, and so she's thrust into this world of finery and all of the trappings that come with being a target of those who would want to do ill to the prince through the kind of backstabbing and court politics that you would get there.
It's
Stella,
basically
could you take over?
it's
That's okay.
basically just this human woman who got pulled from the blood farm. She's put in a vampire world and she has to survive. She went from one really terrible living condition to a different one that's scary. And it's just her growth through rebellion, and other people coming together to rebel against the vampire class. And in this, as he was getting to, we have the prince. His name is Corbin. Prince Corbin gets his own little spin-off series that really goes through his side because you don't get his point of view in the first book. You only get our main 2, which is Laura and Laish. Those are our main 2 characters. And Laish is the Crown's vampire, I guess assassin is the best way people will relate to him. He's basically, the queen says go, he jumps. And so um yeah, that's kind of the rundown. I don't know if that really answered the question. You tell me.
Well, I will tell you that I am now on your Amazon page, and I was about to buy the book
Oh,
because I heard Blood Farm, and I was just like, well, this is crazy interesting. And then I don't care who the love interest is, whether he's a human, other human, or a vampire, or the prince. I don't care anymore. I think I'm just gonna get it. I just opened Amazon.com instead of the one that I need to, so I'll buy it later. But yeah, definitely. I see that you've got your ARC and beta reviewers on Goodreads saying that they have like this is a very unusual book and they haven't read anything like that. So I'm definitely bought. And I think the listeners are going to be very interested as well. When was it published?
So Sonata was published last June of
Yep.
2025, June 12th.
Okay, so you already have like a solid like half a year of being published authors. That's amazing.
Thank
So when is the second one out then?
Oh, that's a good question, isn't it? We we wanted to have it out
Now,
now.
before now.
Yes. And there without getting too political, there's been a lot going on in our side of the world.
Right.
It has derailed things. It is I think that art creation is very important, especially during dark times, right? So the problem is finding the mental space, because when you're trying to build connections with people in person to make sure that your neighbors know, hey, we're in this together, it doesn't leave a lot of time for creativity. And so we have been working on it, but not working on it as much as we want to have worked on it. We are hoping, I mean, if everything aligns correctly, it will be out this year. I can't tell you what time this year it's going to be out because we just don't know.
I mean, I
Right.
do
Yeah,
honestly
that's
feel like this year is very vague. This year's only like 2 weeks, 3 weeks in. I do believe it will be out this year. It may be, a few more months. But we still work on it every day. And like I said, the main focus right now is just pruning it down. But I did want to share one other thing. We talked about Corvin having his own spin-off book. We are going to have our newsletter available. Anyone who signs up for the newsletter, that will be split into 4 parts. And so the first part will be free to anybody who signs up for the newsletter, and then the other parts will be made available as part of a bigger book. So it's not super huge. The whole book together is going to be probably less than 100,000 words. But we're also working on that. We want to release that before we release book 2, but around the same time.
Yeah.
what was the word that I was thinking of? It's like a
Sure.
companion novella or
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like that.
Without too much spoilers here, our readers, one of our main things that we've been asked was, hey, Corvin is absent for large sections of book 1. He goes away, and they're like, what the heck is he doing? And so I was like, well, all this was going to kind of come out in breadcrumbs over the next books, what's going on with him right now. But a large percentage of people who have read the book said, we want to know what's going on with Corvin when he's not on screen or on page. And so I was like, okay, I'll just write it as a book. Like, I'll actually put it down as a full story. And it starts just before the events of Sonata and weaves in and out to end simultaneously with Sonata. So it will answer a lot of those questions, all told from the viewpoint of a character that more and more people, after reading the book, have told us that they desperately wanted to have viewpoint of.
Yeah, okay. I see that. I wouldn't say a lot because I don't read a lot of fantasy romance, but I do see that with fantasy specifically, that people want to have other POVs. Like what did I listen to? A very famous Shatter Me series.
Yeah.
They also have 2 or 3 companion novellas that just show you the other POV, because I think all of them are written just in her POV, all of the books. So yeah, you get like the boys' point of view as well. Yeah, this is something that you don't really do much in regular romance because, well, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that interesting. And it occurred to me that it's a good way to get subscribers to your newsletter. What I'm using is a bonus epilogue. So people read my book and then I tell them, do you want a little bit more from these characters?
Right.
My bonus epilogue, if you sign up to newsletter. And for you, it's going to be, well, not the whole novella. It's just like the beginning of it. So
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. And we thought about the epilogue thing, and the epilogue I've seen other authors do really well when putting the epilogue as their newsletter. And it's interesting to see all the different ways it's like, yeah, here's this thing that we, join our newsletter, please, because, the newsletter is really the only thing the author owns. But also just being able to put this extra out there that you may not have been able to find the place for within the book, because it's still fun for us to write these things that may not have been central to this part of the story.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's I think that's a great idea. And as as an overwriters, I guess that's really cool for you. So you don't have to throw away all the precious things that you have written about the other
Yeah.
characters.
Yep, it's fun.
Yeah, I'm also an overwriter, but not in the description department. I'm more of I can continue them talking for pages and pages and pages, and it's all nice and I love it. But then I'm like, there cannot be this much dialogue. You have to prune it. So what is your process for, well, let's start with the first draft, I think. You did say Stella, you write the FMC point of view, and Vincent, you write the MMC point of view, but how do you do you talk to each other before? How do you plot? Like, I need to know everything.
So let me tell you, I have a lot of feelings about this, because Vincent is absolutely an overwriter, and so with Sonata, we just went in and we were like, okay, this is vaguely what needs to happen in this chapter. Have fun. And when we finished it, there was 190 something thousand words, and I was like, absolutely not. This is wild. How did we get to this number? And that's because Vincent will spend 10 pages writing about a pencil. So I trimmed it down. It took me a long time trimming it down, and I was like, from here on out, we're doing an outline. And so after Sonata, we have sat down and done a chapter by chapter outline of the things that need to happen. The plot, we need to know, we need everything to be relevant to the plot. Is it relevant to the plot? No, it goes. It's something that is like, oh, this is interesting. Let's set it to the side and see if it comes up again, kind of thing. Before in Sonata, did we talk to each other? Yes, not as in depth as we should have. Moving forward, we have an outline, and then everything else belongs to the person writing the chapter.
Okay, so it's actually very, I don't know, in my mind cannot comprehend that you did not outline before Sonata. So like you wrote the whole ass book
Yeah.
without outlining it.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I can maybe help a little bit. We did have obviously conversations about where we wanted it, and the final scene of the final book is already written.
Yes.
We are not pantsers by any stretch of the imagination. We were like, here's what needs to happen. Here are the bullet points. And when I say bullet points, I'm talking like, this character goes to this area and finds this out. Go write that scene. For instance, the first interlude you get from Laisha's perspective happens around chapter 10. It's about 4 chapters long. When I originally handed that little interlude to her, it was like 70,000 words. And she was like, are you kidding? No, you can't have a whole novel to this like 4 chapters here. And so we continue to just trim and trim and trim. So that's kind of what she means when she says we knew where we were supposed to go. We know the layout of the whole story. We know the main character or the main beats that happen, how they happen within the confines of the story, but the way the characters react, the details about what happens in the scene, about how people move through, and even we've had situations where we've disagreed on like who lives and who dies in a chapter, and after the other one goes back and reads it, it's like, oh, but I wanted this to happen in one of my chapters later on. Okay, well now I'm going to rewrite this scene to make sure this person survives because that is a good idea and I want to see that scene. That's maybe a little bit more of an in-depth for how that works. It's not that we go in and I'm like, and then this happened, and she looks at it, she's like, no, but my characters are in a whole different city right now, or you know what I mean?
We always know when it goes.
We know where every character is. We know who's going to meet back up and when, but the fine details, what happens, the character blocking, the movements, the dialogue that happens between those characters, with a rare few exceptions where it's like, hey, I need this to happen in your chapter to set this up. The first draft is just this is how I envision the scene, and we go from that and we see how the characters sync up.
Okay. So, like, logistically, do you write in parallel or do you bounce off each other? So you write a chapter and she waits, and then she writes a chapter and you wait, or something. Like, how do you communicate?
So that is how, so he will write a chapter, then I will read it if it's my turn, and then I go write my chapter. So we do work, whoever's turn it is to be writing in the book. We even edit that way, just so we can make sure that we have the line, or like the whole story straight, because sometimes when we change things and if we're skipping around, it can lead to a hot mess. So messy. So we have started editing to where if it's his chapter to edit, then great, that we're working on that. So let me rephrase that. He writes his chapter, I read it, then I go write my chapter, and then we go back and forth. When we're editing, he goes through the entire book doing a continuity edit to make sure that there's nothing that's like left field. But if we have to go in and like do really hard editing, which we do after the continuity edit, then he will edit a chapter and then I will go in after that. Does that make sense? I feel like I've made that even more confusing than it is. But between the two of us, there are like probably 1,000 rounds of edits on every book because we just go off.
Legitimately, I think both of us probably edited front to back all the way through Sonata 12 to 15 times.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In passing it back and forth. I think probably that many times. We ran it through multiple dev editors. The very first, from the first edit, it was we had already went through it 5 or 6 times, gave it to the first editor, and the editor was like, "Hey, this and this and this and this and this," going down through the whole list. And we went through and we each edited it 2 or 3 times all the way through, sent it to betas, got it back, got all their feedback, went through and edited the whole book 2 or 3 more times, and then went on to our final editor. So when she says like we make a lot of passes, we do. And it's I changed this in this chapter. We highlight the section that we changed, send it to the other person. That person reads that, says, I like this, but I would change this, back and forth. And we go chapter by chapter until we move all the way through the book. And with different focuses based on the feedback that we get from other people.
So how I understand is that you write your corresponding POV chapters, but then you edit your own chapters and each other's chapters as well. So like it doesn't matter whose chapter it is when you're editing.
Right. Correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking while you were talking that like while I myself cannot imagine really doing that with someone, but it sounds fascinating when you only know vaguely what you want to happen in a chapter, and then another person writes it for you, and then you read it and you kind of discover it.
Yeah.
You discover your own story written by someone else. This sounds really interesting to me.
It's fun.
Okay.
And it's fun too because one of the reasons why we have us writing separate points of view is because we wanted the voices to be different for the character. So my writing is different than his. And the voice definitely belongs to the character. And so it's just interesting to see, like, to get like Leish, our character, to get his chapters back and to be like, wow. And then I do get to genuinely react to that in my chapters. It's fun.
I will, to kind of answer an unspoken subtext here, there is a lot of, wow, we did this, or she put this in her chapters and now I've got to react to that. And that at first was a bit difficult to put away, like, oh, I think it should have went this way, because you do have the feeling of this is my book. It's not my book, but you have the feeling of this is something I put a lot of effort in. So maybe I didn't want this to go this route. And I did have to swallow a lot when we started it and just be like, no, I'm going to trust her. But I'm so glad I did, because her method of doing this, once I got past that initial, like, you cut 6,000 words from this chapter, but there was good stuff in there. Why would you cut it? Once I got over that personal barrier, I realized that it does make the book way more healthy. It makes things flow. It keeps things interesting. It keeps the characters fresh.
I think it's quite rare that you are working together so well. I mean, I can imagine there are arguments and stuff, but it's still very rare. I don't think a lot of people would be able to just work so well with another person to get multiple books out and to have them be written well. You do say that you want different characters to have different voices, which is why you're writing different POVs together. Do your readers notice that? Do you know if they say anything in reviews or to you about this different voices thing?
Yes. So actually, we've had a couple of readers point out that they sound different. There was one in particular who is actually in a writing group with me that we had once talked about how if you have different points of view, they start to sound a lot alike. And I explained then that it was important that we kept our voices separate. And that reader came back to me and was like, I can tell that there were 2 different people that wrote these characters and that they enjoyed being able to see that difference.
I did hear mention of a developmental, oh my God, editor and beta reader. So you did hire someone to do like the story editing for you as well.
Yes. We had 2 for Sonata. And the reason was the first developmental editor was not specifically a fantasy romance like author, and they were also a sensitivity reader for us in the transgender space.
Mm-hmm.
They did their part of it, and then we had a second developmental editor who worked more in this genre go through and do another round after that first one did.
For the first time publishing authors, that sounds like a very big investment to do several dev edits. Well, sensitivity is necessary, of course, but usually I notice authors do either dev edit or beta readers. But you are my second fantasy authors, and that the first author also said that he really really wanted to do both. So let's talk a bit about developmental editing and beta reading. Why do you think you needed both?
Yeah. So we did both because I have OCD. I have been diagnosed with OCD, and with the OCD process, it's basically if I don't do XYZ, then this thing will happen, and it will be my fault because I didn't do XYZ. For us, with Sonata specifically, it was if we don't have a lot of people read this, since we will miss something and our first book will go wrong, and it will be my fault because I didn't ask a lot of people to read this before it went out. And it was our first book, and I was extra nervous about it. But we only have one dev editor for our second book, and we are still doing betas. We actually did betas in rounds, so we split it up into the 3 parts, and then after that, we will probably find a few more beta readers to read it in one front to back go. So it will be overall less people than the first time. And we do have alphas. So we have a lot of people reading at a lot of different stages just because I'm a very thorough person.
I mean, that does make sense. And we've discussed with my previous fantasy author that it is a very good investment into knowledge. Basically, you are learning together with the dev editor while they give you all the advice. And then later on, you can decide whether you just want to stick to beta readers because you already know enough theoretically and from your experience what the dev editor would tell you, probably.
Well, hopefully that would be nice, but it's hard for me to be like, I'm going to set this OCD to the side. I wish I could, but yeah, here we are. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's definitely understandable. I think when I was thinking about my first story that I haven't published yet, I was also thinking that I'm going to do both dev editor and the beta readers, but then I saw the prices for dev editors, and I decided maybe I don't need all that.
I will say
I can understand it. Yeah.
I will say that we did trades for our first dev editors. Instead of doing an actual payment, I do digital art. So I did book covers. I did some character art. And so when we got started, we did do trades rather than financial, just paying somebody with money for a lot of the things there.
Okay. So yeah, what kind of trades? Like they would do your dev editing and what could you offer as well?
Yeah. So they would so the first dev editor, they did the dev editing, and then I did a book cover for them. And then our second dev editor, who is now our consistent dev editor, she did the first round for free. I actually owe her a character art. I just got to do that. And then she's very, very kind. And then we did pay her for our second book because we were better financial set up to pay her for our second book.
All right. So you also do covers and you do character art. Did you do your own cover?
I did indeed. That was probably, I don't know, the 50,000 cover that I did for this book.
That I dread the biggest thing I dread about the whole process of releasing book 2 is the cover art. And I am not an artist. I don't contribute to that at all. But she's not kidding when she said she would have things and I was like, that's fantastic. Let's publish. And she was like, nope, I just deleted the whole file. I'm going to start all over with a new idea. And I was just like, why?
Oh, okay. Well, I did say before that I like your cover very much. What's interesting about it, it does look genre appropriate. So I can see clearly that that's a fantasy, probably a romance, but it's not like 1,000 other covers that I've seen.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting balance to strike, to be unique, but also kind of to fit the genre that you want to fit in.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. After this series, I'm going to do all of the books in the series because I want them to be cohesive. But hopefully after this series, I never have to make my book cover ever again. I want to be done with it. It is time consuming. It is mentally draining. I want to set that to the side.
Yeah, I can understand. I'm not a artistic person in that area at all. I wish I could do my own covers. That'd be so much cheaper, but I cannot. But yeah, I can understand that it can be draining. I have an author friend, like my best friend in the author space, who also does her own covers and does her own character art. And I know how much she obsesses over every little thing.
Feel that, yeah.
So, did you always want to publish yourself or did you consider querying?
We've always been like self-published tracked just because I have seen the amount of stress that comes with sitting out, trying to go trad, trying to find an agent. And while there's nothing wrong with that, right now, that's just not something that we were thinking about doing. Maybe in the future, but it hasn't really been an option for us at this time.
Since the primary audience of my podcast is authors who trying to like publish their first book, where did you get information like about the publishing, how to do it? Just like
Yeah.
where did you learn?
So that's me. I did all of that just because I'm the kind of person to fall into rabbit holes like that. One of the things that I have done, I've joined a Facebook group called 20 Books to 50K. And the
Okay.
whole concept behind it is that you only need to write 20 books and sell it for a certain amount each, have it at a certain price point to sell like 2 to make $50,000 a year. So, that Facebook group has been incredibly helpful. The advice in there is all over the place. There's a very wide range of genres represented there. And then personally, I had a lot of conversations with a couple of authors that I know, both Sheila Masterson and Penn Cole. I asked them a lot of questions and they were very kind enough to share with me their experiences. I would say those were the biggest like sources of information that I had. And then everything else was just collecting little pieces here and there.
You know Penn Cole? I just heard the name and I was like, wait, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. So I actually did the first character art for her characters in her book series. So I got to paint both Diem and Luther, and the character art came out on the day that the first book was published. So that was a lot of fun.
I do see in your reviews that you had beta readers, okay, leaving reviews for you, but I also see ARC readers. So you did an ARC campaign for your book. How did you go about that? Like, what were the resources that you used as well?
So we just put a call out on Instagram and asked for ARC readers and a couple of Facebook groups. We did not do the ARC reading campaign very well just because I think we started like maybe 6 weeks before release date. I don't even remember the exact time. And I did not follow up with ARC readers. That's something that I will do in our next book just to make sure that I'm like touching base with them. So, did we do an art campaign? Yes, our ARC readers were lovely. I just did not do it the way I want to do the next one. I need to do better. So, I don't have a lot of advice because I'm still working through that, but yes, we did do one.
I would say that I did my art campaign. I don't know if it was successful or not. To me, it was enough.
Right.
Like, I was okay with it. I'm not sure it was the best way to do it. I didn't follow up with anyone either, but I think it was okay. Who knows?
Yeah.
Probably maybe having a PR company help me or something like that would be nice.
Right.
But yeah, maybe I'll do that for some other investments when I make somewhat normal amount of money from
Right.
this.
Yeah, that's kind of where we feel too. Marketing is not our strong point, and that's really interesting because we both have degrees in marketing, but it's time consuming. Truthfully, that's really what it is. Either we can market or we can write the book. And there are authors out there who are doing really well at both, and I love that for them. And honestly, color me jealous. But for us, when we get wrapped up in our book, like that's the only thing that exists. And unfortunately, marketing falls to the side. And that's why we are working with our PA. We are planning on getting together sometime soon to, start working on what marketing looks like this year. It just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I totally understand that. For me, I'm doing everything myself and also found myself like yes, I need to be writing, but if I don't post today, if I don't spend this half an hour to an hour making a
Yes.
reel, posting, I will not have page reads next
Right.
day. So I'm like, okay, I have to do that. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
I wish I can afford a PA. I'm just cannot afford it mentally.
Right.
Just need to kind of justify to myself hiring someone doing something for me. Let's see, maybe later. Okay, I think what I wanted to ask, but I'm not sure now that that's going to be a valid question because you were talking about getting advice from 20 books to 50K and getting advice on pricing your books as well. And I checked out the price of your book, I think, but I checked it out on a European website and it seemed too cheap to me for 500 something pages. But on .com, I see now that it's $5. So like $4.99 maybe.
That's the
So
ebook.
Oh, for
Ebook.
the ebook is $4.99. The paperback is $17.99 USD.
still, I don't know why, but it seems like I don't know. Did you have any strategy behind this kind of price exactly?
Absolutely
Because
not.
it seems to me that books are more expensive.
No, we did not. I know that I looked at other prices. I probably just picked a price that I saw somebody else list their book for and went with it. I know that like when we were thinking about pricing, it was like just get it done. It wasn't like a big thing, so we just put it here.
Okay. I mean, I'm not saying I'm judging the way you price your books. I was just thinking about the strategy of pricing your stuff. I know that, for example, I priced my very, very tiny 100-page novella in a way that gives me 70% of royalties on Amazon. That was the minimum price. But to me, it is expensive. Like I wouldn't buy a 100-page book for $3. That's like definitely not for me. And I do not get a lot of orders on it, but some people do order it. So I wonder a lot, like whether if I set it cheaper, maybe I'll get more ebooks or something. So it's like, what is the balance there? Do you set it the way you think your book is worth, or do you set it cheaper in order to get more people buying it? Do you get most of your reads from Kindle Unlimited or from orders?
Kindle Unlimited, definitely. That's where the bulk
Yeah.
of the readers, and I think that that's kind of while we were lesser, like where we're not well known authors, Kindle Unlimited has been our focus just so we can grow like our name in the book space. We do or we have done some 99-cent ebook promotions. We probably need to do another one sometime soon. But other than that, it really was just a set it at a number and leave it. And I wish I probably should sit with that more and do better there. Um, but I'll put that on the to-do list because I don't really have a good explanation other than Kindle Unlimited has been our focus simply because it's easier for um people to take a chance on unknown authors when it feels free because like Kindle Unlimited's not free, but
Yeah.
there's less of a risk for them because they are getting everyone who's in Kindle Unlimited for that price, and then they can just start reading our book, and if they like it, great. If not, then they stop it, they move on.
Yeah, that's definitely you are totally right here. Like I am getting most of I can even tell you I have my dashboard open. I'm getting 75 even more percent of my royalties from Kindle Unlimited. So, and I do not think if I set my book to be cheaper, I'm going to get much more
Right,
orders. I'm not sure that's going to happen.
right.
Well,
Most of the people just use Kindle Unlimited. Okay, so I think I've been interrogating you for about an hour now. But there are some questions that I kind of try to ask everybody. So since I don't talk to many fantasy authors, who are your author heroes?
Vincent, you want to take this one?
right now, my two that I lean toward, the two I've been enjoying the most, or that I've enjoyed the most recently, is Katrina Ward, who is not a fantasy author at all. She is a suspense thriller author. She wrote a book called The Last House on Needless Street, and it has what, in my opinion, is the greatest written character I've ever come across. I read that book 2 or 3 years ago, and it still lives rent free in my mind with me being like, if I could create an emotional roller coaster around a character the way she did in this book, to go from I mean, I'm talking like huge emotional swings from I just want to hug this person and tell them things going to be okay to like good, I hope they die and I hope it hurts. And then like swinging like and it's not you will go up and down and back and forth and every single twist felt justified and felt fantastic. So she has been set a new benchmark for my own character design since reading that. And then most recently um I just read through The Ascendants by Jazza Brooks. I mean he's normally a painter and stuff on YouTube. He's a art creator, but he wrote a grimdark book recently and I read through that and I was like, this is I want to evoke the visceral reactions that you will have to some of the scenes in this book. Like there was one that I was listening to the audiobook because I listen while I drive to the store or while I'm doing dishes or whatever. That's when I get my books in. And so I came in and I pulled Stella aside and I was like, we have got to talk about this scene that I just endured because I'm wrecked by it. And I was like, and this is the impact I want to have on our readers. So those are the two that have shaped me the most in recent memory.
Hey, nice. I don't think I've ever heard of either of them. I
It,
Okay, Stella, do you want to add any of your author heroes?
So I would say that as far as writing goes, I really like the way Laini Taylor's Strange the Dreamer, that series. I like the way she has her prose in that book. And so I did use that as inspiration. Like anytime I would read a sentence that spoke to me, I would write it down and just, really sit with the way she worded everything, like the lyrical feel to how she writes. So I would say that that was probably the biggest influence on me, especially in writing the second book.
Okay, right. Yeah, I can understand that. I also have a couple of authors that I don't think I can ever write like them, but when I write my own stuff, I like to listen to them just to get that little inspired with the
Yeah.
prose, especially now that it seems like I don't have much of a like brain fog, but I have vocabulary deficiency during pregnancy. I know the story. I know what's supposed to happen. I just can't find the words that are not banal to write it. Like I don't know why. But
Yeah, I think a lot of authors do that though.
okay.
Just so I think a lot of people
Mhm.
will pick their flavor of author that they like, that they want to be like, and read them while they're writing. So
Yeah, some do. I also know some that try not to read anything of their own genre while they're writing, so they don't get steal words or something like
right.
that. But now I would rather steal words at the moment than write whatever's in my head. It's just crazy. Like I want to say something beautifully, but I literally cannot remember any words. I don't know what's happening. Okay, are there any craft books, podcasts, anything you take knowledge from or like to listen to improve your craft?
So I'll use the emotion thesaurus that is by, let's see, Becca Puglisi. I probably said that wrong. And then Angela Ackerman.
No, yeah.
So I use that. I have two monitors up when I'm writing, and I have the emotion thesaurus over here on the left monitor, and then I have my document that I'm working on my right. And it has helped me a lot when I am stuck on I tend to use the same things to show emotion, and I know that I'm like, oh, he clenches his jaw too much. I recently watched an Instagram post, and I do follow this actually for knowledge. It's called Prose Without Thorns, and it's a Black POC author who is putting out information about how we can write our characters with care and and make sure that we're not doing harm. She's
Mhm.
actually very interesting to listen to, and she's very thorough. She put out a video recently that I watched just yesterday that was like, white women, why are you making your white women characters cry all the time? And I was like, I don't know. Why am I making my character cry? And so I went to our manuscript and I control F the word tears, just to make sure I wasn't making my characters cry all the time. And I don't feel like I have made them cry um quite to the level that she was asking. But it did lead me to sit with, why are we doing this? She talks about how it kind of puts our characters in an unflattering light. Why are we doing this? And so I have found, that's just one example. I've found a lot of her content to be very, very interesting, and it leads me to question a lot of the things that I'm writing. So I definitely recommend that.
Hey, interesting. I don't think I've seen that particular one, and it makes me think how much my characters cry in
Yeah, yeah,
in and I mean, it's a normal amount. I make my guys cry
yeah.
sometimes because I like
Same.
that. That is a sort of I like to torture them, but more like they're sensitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, for us.
Okay. Well, I only have two main questions left, but they're my favorites. So I think let's start with my recent favorite question. You can both answer or choose one of you. What is the thing that you are most proud of in your work, in your books?
Oh, Vincent has one. Vincent actually did a show and tell at his job the other day about this.
Oh yeah. So, I think every author has things on their bucket list. That there's sell X amount of copies, or there's we've crossed milestones that I never dreamed of us crossing as early as we have. Even talking on a podcast was always on a bucket list for me. And so, it's been surreal to go through all of these things. But the one that takes the cake, when we were publishing the book, we wanted our own scene break. So Stella drew the scene break that is in many of the chapters in the book. And one of our earliest readers, someone who has been just an absolute support through the whole thing, loved the book, has ranted and raved about it a lot, sent us a picture where they got the scene break art tattooed. And that is by far the biggest honor I could possibly imagine. I think that every author maybe holds out for the thought that like someone will get a quote from their book tattooed on their body or something. And it's one of those things where like I had thought if we ever cross this bridge, it's going to be years down the road. And to have that come out within the first 6 months after putting out the book was just flabbergasting. I still don't have words to describe the feeling that even a couple months after they did it, even thinking about it, I'm still just like, I cannot believe that happened. And it's been the highlight of everything for me to see that we've connected with people on such a level that we've had somebody actually put it on their body, and that's just it's amazing.
Oh my God, this is crazy. I'm getting goosebumps here. I can't even imagine if someone did that with anything related to my books. I'd be like, "Are you sure? That's a
Yes.
permanent
I mean,
decision."
you definitely have the imposter syndrome. You're like, really? But at the same time, it's like, I just take it with the respect and the gravity that it hits me with, because it's just so incredible to see that and to know that something about the book, something they connected with so much, led them to do that. It's honestly a bit of a pressure for, well, I hope you really like where the story goes now. If I let you down, that's permanent, you know?
Yeah, can you imagine the third book comes out and they don't like the ending and they're like, "I'm removing this."
Yeah.
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 Well, I'm so glad I asked this question because I forget sometimes. It's like it's a new question I started asking. I forget sometimes, but like always the answers are so different. I love that. Okay, that's really crazy. Especially as a fantasy author, I think that's definitely on a bucket
Yeah.
list. I think for me it would be kind of similar, but it would be something like a quote, like a dialogue line or something like that.
Right.
I have one ARC reader who's like just a huge indie author supporter. She's amazing. She's from Germany. Her name's Monica, and she's reading mostly all indie authors, a lot of new ones, and she has this tradition where she embroiders elements from the books she reads on a sweatshirt or a shirt or something like that. And she posts this, and I see like little things that were in my book on like embroidered on someone's sweatshirt. And I'm like, that is
That's
amazing.
awesome.
That is so cool.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. I love that person so much. And well, the question that I think I ask in every interview, I hope I never forgot, but who knows? It's basically writing advice. So it could be best writing advice you've heard or worst. Depends on like Yeah, it depends on what resonates more.
We're gonna go with worse because
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a story.
Okay.
We had our book written from like it had gone through all of the editors, and we had someone who was proofreading, and they were not just proofreading, they were editing. And on one of the chapters, they left a comment that was like, the greatest thing about writing is that you have a backspace key. And they were basically like, delete this, start over. And we were like 2 weeks from publishing. And it was just so funny to see that comment. I was like, we're not about to start this over. And so it was the funniest, but also the worst advice that we could have gotten, because she was like, use that backspace key. And it was like, oh my God, no. So that's it. Does that help other people? Probably not. I mean, I guess if you're in your early drafts, the best thing you have about writing is that you have a backspace key. But that is definitely what we think about when we're feeling down. We think about that comment because it's just so funny.
It is hilarious. Honestly, I think it's a nice advice when you kind of tell it to yourself
Yeah.
to like, edit, prune, and whatever. But the audacity of that person to just tell you that
Yeah.
when she was proofreading, that's a little crazy.
Yeah, I know. And the thing is, like, I was like, hey, we just need a proofreader. Like, it has, at this point, it's gone through so many rounds of editing and, like, professional editing. And it was, please just proofread. And then she left some comments. I was like, really, I just need you to proofread. And then she said that one. I was like, you know what? Maybe we are not a good fit. Have a good life.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, if you have thoughts, just write a review if you
Yeah.
want. Just like, don't tell the authors. What's the
Yeah.
point?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's totally crazy. But honestly, I've never heard this kind of I mean, the similar advice, yes, but not phrased this way. Like the best thing. What was it? The best thing about
Is that
writing
you have a
is that
backspace key.
I find like it's a nice turn of phrase. It's nice to think about, but yeah, not in this
Yeah.
context for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was on like chapter 3, and all 3 of those chapters have been full of, I don't like that this character is doing this. Have you considered, making your character feel more heroic? We had one person that literally said after reading chapter 1, I'm sorry, I'm looking for something more Star Wars. And we were like, I don't know how our book found you when you're looking for something more like Star Wars.
Yeah. Expectations mismatch. That's really what it comes down. And honestly, and
Right.
from this, honestly, the best, if we were going to be serious about advice, the best advice is to make sure that when you're getting feedback, it is coming from your target audience. Because if you have someone who is expecting Star Wars, and this person was very nice in how they delivered. Oh well, no, I'm thinking about someone else. Actually, we had 2 people that were a mismatch. One said I was expecting Star Wars. The other one, when I sent it to them, I knew it was a mismatch, but they asked if they could read it. They were very nice, but I knew that we weren't their target genre, and that was okay. Like, here, have it. You have it. And he wrote me back after reading the first chapter, and he was like, hey, this isn't for me. He's like, I can tell that you're writing, you put a lot of work into it. I like it, but this is just not my genre. And I think that really helped paint that. Make sure you're not taking advice from people who don't even enjoy your genre, because that's going to ruin your experience as an author. It's going to make it hard, and you're just taking advice from people who don't even read what you're writing. They don't enjoy it, and that's going to influence how they feel about it. And just try to keep that in mind when you're writing.
Definitely. I agree completely.
If I had to give an actual piece of advice, if you're an author like me who does overwrite, I once read a book that was 300 pages and there was no dialogue in it. It was all just description, and I absolutely adored it. And the thing is that most people aren't that way. So if you are that type of person, you do like to overwrite, you do like to have those darlings, the phrase that everybody says, kill your darlings. Be comfortable when people give you that feedback, and learn to be okay with people telling you, hey, this scene doesn't matter. You can take this out. You can lose this. That was a bitter pill for me to swallow when I first started, but trust the people around you, the people that are reading your book, because even though you feel like it's important, you feel like it's great, you feel like, oh, this enriches the world, it helps with immersion, it does all of these things, people will fill in a lot of those gaps by themselves if you give them the chance to. And you don't have to describe every surface in the room. People will populate that room, and it will basically fit what you have in your head. So the sooner you can get comfortable with taking that actual good feedback about how you can tighten things up and what is needed and what is not, the better and the faster you'll have some peace of mind with moving forward.
I just want to agree with everything, basically. And to the point that, yes, you need to listen to feedback from your target audience for sure, because your target audience will tell you where they got bored,
Yes.
where they stopped reading. And even if you like that part so much, this will tell you basically where the people that buy your book or start reading on Kindle Unlimited, where they may stumble and just stop reading. So that's clearly a very good advice. And listening and making sure that's your target audience, that's for sure. That's one of the reasons I don't like much describing my stories even to my husband. Not that it's like I'm ashamed or whatever. It's more like he starts to give me advice based on his stories that he likes,
Right.
and which are mostly action. So he's like, why don't you add some exciting action in there? And I'm like, but no, that story is not about that. There are characters in there and it's more internal than external. I don't really like plot heavy romance. It's not for me. So like we are really clashing in this. He sometimes gives me good advice, but most of it is how to make it into a Hollywood worthy movie, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So yeah. And even the target audience will see your book. So, well, for me, it mostly comes from like the notion of how spicy the book is, because I write spicy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had people for my like a Christmas romance. I have a Christmas book that is kind of cute. It's spicy, but it's also cute. So I had so many reviews saying it's a Hallmark story, so like very cute, adorable, whatever. And then someone put it on their Goodreads shelf under "Hose Me Down with Holy Water." It's not that bad. Come on, cannot be this. So everybody sees so differently that, yeah, you really cannot please everyone, but at least make sure that it's your target audience. So yeah, you're right here completely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, before I let you go, just very quickly, where can people find you? So the website, socials, everywhere they can get your books.
So we are on Kindle Unlimited. And we do have a website, but I need to update it. So I think the best place to find us would be on Kindle. And then for socials, I am mostly Instagram based. And I plan on doing better there. Vincent does some social, but not really. He is
Mostly the Discord. If you did join
Yeah.
our Discord, I will be the one that's going to respond to you within an hour or two if you put something on Discord.
We do have a Discord community. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for staying with me for such a long time. I really don't think that I asked everything I wanted to, but if I did, you would stay here for a couple of more hours. So, thank you so much. Good luck with the second book. And well, hopefully everything gets better somehow. So we'll see your next book as soon as possible.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for meeting with us and give us your time too. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
If you like what you hear so far, please consider subscribing and tune in for the next episode. If you have burning questions about writing you'd like to have answered, head to my Instagram page at kkalbabooks and leave me a message. Or use my email k.k.alba.books@gmail.com. If you'd like your favorite author to answer your question on my show, again, head to my Instagram or email me to let me know which author you'd like me to invite, and I'll try to get over my anxiety and do it. On the other hand, if you're an author who's published at least one book, traditional or indie, and you'd like to become a guest, well, you know what to do by now. Message me and let's get to know each other.